the Kamala regime, under the Biden regime, under the Trump regime, it's always the same, right? So like the New York Times is lying about the agenda a little bit, okay? But I think that the Democrats should probably keep pushing that that there's also an I tweeted a lot this morning. Didn't I tweet about this? Yeah, conservatives get so lame when they won't let the whitest people make white people jokes. Like, it's just so silly. Like, what the f are you doing? Like, they're so mad. They're so mad that Tim Walz like made a joke.
Guy talk.
Listen, I'm not much of a spice guy. And they're so, why did you reinstall Twitter? I didn't. I just do it on my desktop. I go on my desktop. These like comedy is now illegal because I can't say the N-word. And then they like, in the same breath will be like, how dare you disrespect white people? It's like, bro, choose a lane. Like, what are you doing? Like, if you're gonna be a social justice warrior, I think being a social justice warrior over like white people jokes is the lamest way that you could be a social justice warrior in general. Like, it literally is so insane to me. It's like, you are unironically doing this thing. You are unironically doing this thing where you're like, no jokes allowed. Not even like, you know, permissible jokes. You just can't do it. It's like, it's akin to woke scolding black people for making jokes about black people. Like, who the fuck, stay in your lane, dude? Like, what are you doing? It just, oh my God, dude. They're so goddamn lame. They're so unimaginably lame. Dan Bilzerian is based with, yeah, he got PBD to admit that there's a genocide going on apparently and then schooled him. I don't know what's happening there, but anyway, let's continue. Yeah, it's just, they need to stop. Republicans need to stop. Actually, you know what? Keep going, Republicans. You're doing a great job, actually. Yeah. We'll do the taco drama in a second. Let's get started. Harris and Biden are reuniting on the campaign trail. They shouldn't, in my opinion, but whatever, you know.
Now to the race for the White House. Vice President Harris is set to lay out her economic plan today after making her first appearance with President Biden since he dropped out of the race. Former President Trump held another press conference, and Rachel Scott is here with more. Good morning, Rachel.
Hey, Rebecca. Good morning to you. Well, Vice President Kamala Harris has only been in the race now for a few weeks. She has not outlined any policy plans yet, but all of that will change today. She is set to unveil her economic agenda as she really tries to thread this needle between touting the Biden-Harris record and laying out her own vision for the country. This morning, Vice President Kamala Harris set to unveil her economic agenda in North Carolina today after appearing with President Biden for the first time since he dropped out of the race.
Few leaders in our
The craziest part of the economic agenda so far is that, like, it's obviously populist. It's obviously good. I'm actually shocked that they're defending it. And I think that the media might actually start swiping at them. The media might actually start swiping at them a little bit because the New York Times already started. Like, they brought together some of the most annoying economists to be like, yeah, at the top of the hour, there's a 3-minute ad break and Kamala Harris has no answer for it. They don't realize that she does. It's still the same principle, $6 a month in the form of a subscription or a free one in the form of a Twitch Prime will allow you to avoid the top of the hour ad break. Under the Kamala regime, under the Biden regime, under the Trump regime, it's always the same, right? So like the New York Times is lying about the agenda a little bit, okay? But I think that the Democrats should probably keep pushing that that there's also an alternative method. Like, you can get a gifted sub if you're lucky. Like, you can get a gifted sub if you're lucky to avoid the top of the hour ad break as well. And I think that's also important to acknowledge. Also important to acknowledge, also important to recognize. Here's the 3-minute ad break now. Okay, it's $1 in Egypt, not $6. Nice. But yeah. We're going to be talking about the fact that Kamala Harris unveiled the agenda for one of the most pressing issues that I think is a top of mind, right, for a lot of Americans, young, old, everyone. It is the affordability crisis that everyone is experiencing, both in housing and in just all consumer goods across the board. And I don't find it odd that the media immediately started launching attacks, because that's what they do. They're in the pocket of big corporations at the end of the day. They're in a bind because they hate Donald Trump for volatility. And also Donald Trump has a lot of economic policy points that will harm big corporate donors as well, like instituting major tariffs and stuff, specifically on Chinese goods. So that's already something that a lot of people are worried about. But on the other hand, I think the Kamala team is also using this advantage to be like, no, this is the real way that we're going to solve the affordability crisis. we're going to go after price gougers, right? And of course, the media immediately, as soon as they show like a level of sanity in their policy making, in their agenda, the media has to be like, whoa, 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 you can't do that. That's communism. But yeah, let's see.
Our nation have done more.
What's the reason she can't do things with Biden right now? Great question. I don't know if you know this, but she's running for president currently. There are certain things that she could do. I think foreign policy wise, there's definitely certain aspects of her agenda that she could communicate across the Biden's team and Biden's camp on foreign policy. But as far as like instituting more power to the FTC under the Biden regime is probably going to be too difficult to pull off, while also simultaneously running for president. Now, before people say, oh, she doesn't have Congress, a lot of the stuff that they're talking about is not actually is not limited by congressional approval. So just so you understand, so she could technically do it if Biden wanted to do it. But I don't think that there is any enough momentum at this moment. Didn't the court say they won't let that stuff happen? Yeah, okay. Well, you know, I have an answer for that. It's called who gives a okay? Let's continue.
On so many issues, including to expand access to affordable health care than Joe Biden.
The president touting the first ever negotiations with pharmaceutical companies to lower the cost of 10 drugs.
Kamala and all of us in this room, we're going to keep standing up for Big Pharma. I fought too damn hard to yield now.
The VP does not have unilateral decision-making power. They have influencing power. Exactly. 100%. And like she is already currently with this agenda, with this economic agenda, she's already personally saying that they're going to continue what they've done so far in the Brandon regime with respect to the FTC, with respect to Lena Khan. That's actually a really solid thing. For the record, I do think this is good. I will always be honest with you. When I see the Democrats doing something good, I will tell you, okay? I will tell you. I think that, I think that personally running alongside Brandon like this, not the greatest thing, okay? But that's fine. It's okay. Biden has also made bold proclamations even when he was running as well. He's made bold proclamations about what he wants to do with the economy. So I think the Kamala campaign is basically continuing that agenda, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's a very good thing. Okay.
We're not backing down.
But with polls showing most Americans are still dissatisfied with the economy, the vice president will offer her own proposals later today. Her campaign says Harris will propose up to $25,000 in down payment support for first-time.
Remember this decrepit skeleton that everyone decided is unfit for office? Want to hear from him again? Yeah, I mean, look, they're gonna give him his flowers. I think that personally, they're giving him his flowers because like that's the only way you can get motion with him. That's it. There's like, I can't see any other genuine reason as to why you would just like plaster Biden anywhere else. Like they're literally being like, hey, you're the GOAT. Thank you for dropping out and doing the right thing and not being an old curmudgeon that refused to like listen to reason what this is. Okay. That's what I suspect is going on here. And it might be so that they can maybe get Biden to be more reasonable about some of the things that have to change right now when he is the president, when he has the power to set the stage, you know? In some ways, it feels like maybe they're doing the bear hug strategy. It also hurts the coup narrative. Exactly. When Biden comes out and campaigns alongside Kamala Harris, that completely deflates the idea that Republicans have tried to present, which is like the Democrats did a coup. Like it just destroys that narrative. You know what I mean? So that's probably another reason why they're doing that as well. But I think most importantly, they're keeping him around because like ultimately they want to keep him happy because, he still is the president and he still has the capacity to completely f this up. All right, let's continue.
Home buyers who have paid their rent on time for 2 years. Expand the child tax credit, providing up to $6,000 per child, and implement a first-ever federal ban on price gouging on food and groceries.
I can only get so hard. I'm gonna be honest with you. This is great stuff, chat. I'm not joking when I say this. Like, I was actually shocked when Biden was talking about a federal cap, like federal rent control. That's an insane policy. Like, that's not something that you hear from the Democrats a lot of times. Like Biden originally instituted some kind of rent control that was like super limited. Okay, super limited. Then he turned around and said we're going to try to push for a federal rent control across the board and we're going to limit it at 5%. And that was also pretty fire. Every time they were like, bro, you're old, he would just come out and be like, I'm going to do another progressive populist policy. Okay. Every time they would be like, you're old, please leave. He'd be like, I'm doing socialism, Jack. Phenomenal message, worst messenger. I kept saying that back then, and I will repeat that now. Not the worst messenger, and the message is great. So, you know, I will give credit where credit is due. Okay, these are things that are genuinely good. It's one of the first times where I've ever seen the Democratic Party actually fight. Okay, yeah, I did. Yeah. Can you actually set the bag up real quick? Wait, hold on. Let me.
An idea already drawing criticism. Donald Trump.
She wants price controls, and if they worked, I'd go along with it too. But they don't work.
The former president speaking at his golf club in New Jersey, surrounded by groceries, for a press conference his advisors said would focus on the economy.
We're gonna have a crash like a 1929 crash if she gets in.
Harris's running mate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, accusing Trump of rooting for economic catastrophe.
There is nothing funnier. There is nothing funnier. Democrats literally lie every 4 years about what they will say will happen. What makes you think she isn't lying about literally everything she's saying? You're not wrong about this. Democrats have consistently lied about what they're going to end up doing. The difference in this circumstance, okay? The difference in this circumstance is that you have to pay attention to what they're lying about and what they've done so far. On the issue of the economy, the Biden administration has actually pursued through the federal regulatory bodies a pretty radical agenda. That's not a joke. That's not a lie. That is real. That is something that they did. But more importantly than that, Democrats ultimately never make proclamations of this sort. This is new. They do radical proclamations when it comes to like, oh, we're going to do amnesty, which is weirdly enough an area where they're actually retriangulating to the right. And I don't like that. So in a weird way, it's been a complete swap. On the one hand, they literally are pushing for economic policies that they don't openly state ever. Okay. Things that are like, that will immediately be considered like communist, socialist, radical, crazy by the Republicans that they shy away from usually. Okay. But on the other hand, they've completely swapped the ticket on stuff like, protections for immigrants, protections for migrants and things of that nature. They've actually shifted on that entirely. You say that this is the first time you remember Dems fighting, right? Well, Kamala is the first admin since 1992 that doesn't have Clinton advisors for economic and foreign policy. She'll turn them down, they asked. This is the shift, in my opinion. Yeah, like this is for the Democratic Party. If we are looking at this with respect to like what the Democrats have put forward, usually this is one of the boldest agendas that I've ever seen. And something that's really interesting about the way that they're communicating this agenda is that they're not like, one thing that Kamala Harris said that I found very interesting was, if I win the Senate, we'll do this, right? She didn't just say, oh, we're going to do this when you elect me. She literally has said, once I win the Senate, like once we win Congress and the White House, we will pass this. So that's a really interesting way to message. Okay. That's number one. Number two, a lot of the policies that she's talking about, some of the policies that she's talking about does not require congressional power. Some of the things that she's talking about are directly done through the federal regulatory agencies, which she would have control over. So that is actually really solid. Okay.
I put that to the former president. He's been saying that he believes that you want things to get worse so that you can campaign on it, that you're rooting for failure. What's your response to that?
I wish I didn't have to do this. If our country were run by Democrats and it was run beautifully, where we were really being productive and everything else, I would have never done this.
Trump went from discussing inflation to weighing in on the weight of electric trucks to calling Harris a communist. Some of his own Republican supporters have begged him to focus on policy, but Trump making it clear he's not going to change.
I think I'm entitled to personal attacks. I don't have a lot of respect for her. I don't have a lot of respect for her intelligence, and I think she'll be a terrible president. And I think it's very important that we win. And whether the personal attacks are good, bad, I mean, she certainly attacks me personally. She actually called me weird. He's weird.
Yeah, so don't expect those personal attacks to change anytime soon. Well, the first vice presidential debate is now set. Governor Tim Walz and Senator J.D. Vance have both agreed to face off on October 1st. And of course, ABC News.
Mentioning congressional support also adds a cushion for failure. It's also honest. And I don't know why they don't do that more frequently, because it's good to also mention that you need congressional approval in this situation. And I think it helps the down ballot chances. Like there are obviously Senate races on the same ballot. There are House races on the same ballot that could tilt in the direction of the Democratic Party's control over both the House of Representatives and the Senate and the White House. So that's like a good thing that I think you should be communicating overall. It's also great that they're doing the "you're weird, we want to help people, you just want to talk about things that nobody cares about." And you can tell that that's good because Donald Trump is responding to it like a little baby. Okay.
News will have the very first presidential debate between Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris on September 10th, Rebecca.
And there will be so much focus on that, Rachel. There's also focus on the vice presidential candidates, and our new poll shows how Americans are viewing them.
Yeah, and this race has entirely transformed this summer. A new candidate in the race and both campaigns choosing their running mates. So how are they stacking up? Our new ABC News, Washington Post, and Ipsos poll shows that Governor Tim Walz is getting more of a positive reception at 39% compared to his Republican rival Senator J.D. Vance, who is at 32%. And it's not just the reception. More Americans approve of Walz for the job. Now, both of these candidates are veterans. Walz served in the National Guard, Vance in the Marine Corps. Our poll shows that Vance is polling slightly higher among veterans. This is notable given.
That's not surprising. Come on. We know why. That's because he's red. He's a Republican. That's it. Yeah, that is the least. First of all, a lot of vets are hogs. Okay, if you're unfamiliar, it is you think it's surprising? Come on, dude. It's because he's Republican. Vets are hogs. Is it surprising to me? No, I think like I was watching a TikTok about a Marine dude. I mean, look, you know better. You're a vet. Okay, but I feel like they see Republican on the ticket and they're like, that's my guy. It'll be harder once they debate it if Tim Walz campaigns with any sharpshooting videos. A lot of vets get a steady dose of Fox News. Yeah, there's a ton of hogs in the field of vets in this country. That doesn't mean that there aren't like plenty of, even socialist veterans and whatnot. Obviously, many of them in this chat, but like that's not shocking to me at all.
All of the backlash and criticism that Walz has faced for how he has characterized his military career. Lindsay.
All right, Rachel, thanks so much.
Kamala Harris finally.
Kamala Harris to unveil economic policy, absolute socialism. So we're going to dive into this stuff. Okay, we're going to dive into this stuff. Here is one of them. Here's some of the top of the line, things that she unveiled. $6,000 child tax credit for newborns in the first year. Major. Restore Biden's child tax credit. Up to $3,600 monthly checks. Incredible stuff. Up to $25K in government assistance for first-time buyers with, I think, like perfect renters credit. That's also pretty solid. Universal $35 insulin cap, which was already like a continuation of the former. Like a lot of this stuff is a continuation of Biden's policies, right? Universal $35 cap is an extension. Like it builds on the prior momentum on this sort. $2,000 out-of-pocket cap for pharmaceutical drugs. Incredible work. Other provisions include federal ban on price gouging. This is the one I like a lot, okay? For food and groceries, providing FTC new power to penalize companies. That's major. There was a lot of talk. There was a lot of back and forth among Democratic donors that would go on CNN and say, we want Lena Khan out. Lena Khan has been doing phenomenal work in trust busting at the FTC. She is a shining star that is only there because of Biden's responsiveness to his left flank. This was part of the reason why Bernie Sanders was so... Did you shut it off? Okay, perfect. Thank you. So all of this, I would say, all of this are pretty good. They're pretty good signs for the future. If Biden has so many good policies, why didn't he use them as talking points during his campaign? Great question. I think the answer is he was so old and so decrepit. That's it. Like that's literally it. I would cringe sometimes when he would say the good policies because I was like, he's the worst person. He is the worst messenger for even good economic populist policies. So like, he just kept going NATO. That's what he cared about. That's what he remembered. Over and over again. Do you think Bernie has had an effect on this administration, on the Biden administration? Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Is price gouging just raising prices? How is it measured? I'm not for this. I just don't understand how you determine if a company has gouged or not. Great question. So price gouging is something that a lot of people understand when it's like times of crisis, right? In a natural disaster zone, for example, all of a sudden people that are selling life-saving supplies or things that are absolute necessities will hike up the prices because there's obviously additional extra demand and limited supply. So they will turn around and just be like, oh yeah, you want toilet paper? It's gonna be $15, right? This is I believe is technically illegal if I'm not mistaken. And the thing is, a lot of corporations across the board in the post-COVID universe have done that for consumer goods in general. And you can take a look at it. You can see how much prices have gone up overall and how much other prices have adjusted post-COVID, right? Or like post-logistical hurdles, post-energy crisis. Like there were many different moments where prices have obviously understandably gone up as a consequence of the price of a barrel of gas going up. That increases the prices for everything. It is technically still arbitrary. But, you know, this is one of the greatest examples of it. All right. High egg prices and profits at largest U.S. producer soaring more than 700%. For example, egg prices rose 60% last year. Okay. This was a major issue. March 29th, 2023. Everybody kept saying, oh, it's because of the avian flu. It's because of the avian flu. Except the skins of eggs actually weren't even hit by the avian flu. They just jacked up the prices because everybody was like, oh, it's the avian flu. They had 0 instances of avian flu and they still jacked up the prices. Okay. That is a great example of price gouging in general. Companies taking advantage of the confusion and the chaos and just hiking up prices in general. Why don't they just target monopoly instead of price gouging? What do you think Lena Khan is doing? That's so weird. You just said Lena Khan goat, Lena Khan goat, Lena Khan goat. That's precisely what she's been doing as well. Yeah, landlords raising rent because of market conditions too. That's exactly what it is. Using any and every reason to hike up prices when you don't have any supply issues is precisely what price gouging is. So, bro, you're so wrong. I'm an ornithologist and avian influenza has been wrecking chicken populations. Crow car honk. The crow guy, I will literally never feed crows peanuts or salty snacks if you keep this up in the chat, okay? I'm letting you know right now. I will never give crows salty peanuts if you keep this up. You are causing me to never feed crows salty snacks that they actually appreciate a lot, including salty peanuts. Or sorry, you need to feed them unsalted peanuts. Salted food hurts them. Okay, unsalted. I will only feed them salty snacks if you keep this up. Don't make me. Okay. Anyway, we're going to continue on the price gouging stuff in a second. So there's other cool in there. Obviously, the EITC expanding that as the earned income tax credit, working with states to cancel medical debt is a huge one. That's really popular. Is really solid in general. Extending ACA subsidies. That's fine. I think that what they should be doing is also expanding Medicare in general. That was a Bernie policy. It's like literally the most popular out of all the policies that Bernie Sanders actually tested. When the latest Data for Progress poll, the latest Data for Progress study that came out that showed that was polling at like an 80% approval rating or something, like putting dental vision care on Medicare is like insanely popular. With a constituency that actually reliably votes, we're talking about, you know, obviously 65 and over. These are people that do vote reliably. These are people that love their health care. They love their health insurance. So it's a really solid way to sneak in Medicare expansion in general, lower the age of Medicare to 55 maybe, you know, and slowly but surely you arrive at Medicare for all, who knows? So there's that. Clever way to think about what's happening on CTC, child tax credit. The next question is, how does Harris pay for these initiatives? The temporary Biden CTC alone was $1.4 trillion or so over 10 years, and a blanket extension of ACA subsidies is $270 billion over a decade. Okay. There are also some supply side initiatives for home building. I think expanding on 3 million homes, like opening up the way to allow 3 million additional units to be constructed. I don't know the exact details of how that would happen, That could be a scary way in which they do it because the Republicans also have a similar policy on their agenda. That could also be a good way to do it. New York Times had a good article on price gouging yesterday. No, they didn't. They had a bad article on price gouging as far as I saw. I saw the top line on that article. It was economists on it. So I don't know if I consider it to be good. So, you know, there's also the basic stuff in which like the Republicans are being weird about Kamala Harris's name. Here is one example of this. Nancy Mace was on CNN.
Kamala's
you had it right. You almost got it.
I will say Kamala's name any way that I want to.
No,
but
you mispronounced her and you also misjudged her.
I just did, and I'll do it again.
Mispronouncing her name.
That's
what
Explain price gouging, please. Dude, I just got done explaining it. What the did you just tune in? What's happening? I literally just explained it, dude. That's crazy. Maybe he just got in though. Maybe he just got in. Or maybe he's a mobile chatter and hasn't gotten to that point of the stream yet. I don't know. This is like a real, oh, they didn't teach us that in school moment where it's like, maybe you just weren't paying attention. Okay. What? Alan Lichman's son
What are your thoughts
responded to you? Okay, that is the most insane drama. I don't care. Okay, let's continue. Quiz slandering mobile chatters. Yeah. Okay, let's continue. So there was this. I'm a mobile chatter. Please you be gentle with us. Anyway, what time are you going to the Beyblade tournament? Okay, guys, stop memeing. My ADHD is out of control today, and you guys are abusing it. Okay, you're using and abusing my ADHD today. Oh my God. Okay. Matt Bruning's reaction to Harris's policy. Quick reaction to Harris's policies. Matt Bruning is a good egg, obviously. Love the guy. From peoplespolicyproject.org. He is the leftist nerd, the leftist econ nerd that we need. Kamala Harris unveiled many campaign policy proposals today. Jeff Stein and Dan Diamond have covered it at the Washington Post. Below are reactions to some of these proposals. $25K for first-time home buyers. This is a bad idea. It is unfair to people who, even with the subsidy, cannot afford to buy a home or those who prefer to rent because there's a demand subsidy without any corresponding price controls. Some of the money will just get captured as higher home prices, negating the affordability goals of the policy. Okay, not an unfair take. It is not an unfair take at all. I think it's a true take. Okay, that one is... These are not the strongest ones. The ones I care about is this, okay? But he says it is unclear what this even means. In a New York Times article about it, Jim Tankersley writes, Harris campaign officials did not detail how a price gouging ban would be enforced or what current corporate behaviors would be outlawed if it were enacted, okay? It is already illegal for producers to coordinate so as to fixing prices, something Harris also separately said she plans to tackle through harsher penalties. Price gouging is something different than that, but it also seems sometimes to be used to refer to a very narrow set of practices like increasing the prices the day after a hurricane, while other times being used to refer to any time sellers increase prices during a positive demand shock or a negative supply shock, which is kind of how a lot of the economy works. When restaurants increase prices after happy hour, are they engaged in food price gouging? A better idea would be for the federal government to spend about $45 billion to purchase Kroger. This will allow it to directly set the price for the second largest grocery store chain in the country. He's not wrong. I mean, but this is a bit of a meme. Your boss, Amazon, is one of the biggest culprits in price gouging. I agree. I know. Which is why I love Lena Khan. And also, they should tackle that as well. He's not wrong. This would be the most effective way of like out-competing. This would be the most effective way of out-competing everybody else. He's right about this. Except that would, I think, terrify people. I wish they would do it, though. That would be great. There's also a wording issue on here. It's not a ban on price gouging. It's a plan to give the regulatory boards additional resources and power to investigate potential cases of price gouging upon suspicion of price gouging. It's not a China-style ban in terms of if you increase the prices by more than 5%, we will execute the shareholders. Okay, that's not my expectation anyway. Okay, capping out-of-pocket spending on drugs at $2,000. This is a good idea, assuming it's well-designed. Read David Trimmer on it here. 6K tax credit for newborns. This is basically a good idea. It's sometimes called a baby bonus or maternity grant. Ideally, you would not design this as a tax credit, but instead a straightforward cash grant paid out by Social Security Administration. In other countries, maternity grants like this are even provided a couple months before birth so the money can be used for various baby-related items. Paying it out as a tax credit generally means parents won't be able to access it until early parts of the year after they give birth, assuming they file for taxes, which the poorest parents do not do. 3K child tax credit. The current child tax credit is $2,000 per child. It has a phase-in that includes the poorest kids and a phase-out that excludes the richest kids. It is paid out in a lump sum at the end of the year. For 1 year in 2021, the child tax credit was $3,000 per child, had no phase-in, and was paid out monthly. This basic idea of this was good, but the execution of it as an IRS-administered monthly advance refundable tax credit was bad. Among other things, it caused poor people to not get the benefit, as I wrote about extensively in 2021. A better idea would have the Social Security Administration pay a monthly cash benefit to every child. I don't disagree with that either. Increase subsidies for individual health insurance plans. It is hard to assess this idea without first observing the entire structure of how we do health insurance is so unbelievably awful that all anyone should want to do is completely overhaul it. I 100% agree with that. But it seems like Democrats basically are content with gradually adding more and more subsidies to help a relatively small percentage of the population who buy insurance plans from the individual exchanges. It's fine. Nationalizing grocery stores is a good idea to expose Americans to. I cannot begin to admit how much I agree with that sentiment. Okay. I am telling you right now, there are already mechanisms in play that are investigating Kroger and many other Amazon and many other grocery chains in terms of like increasing prices artificially, utilizing the additional level of utilizing all of the extra information that you have, like the McDonald's app. Okay. Using like price adjustments. This is all already happening. This is many invisible ways in which people don't recognize that you're being gouged. Okay. It is crazy. Like these applications like Uber already fucking do it. Like, for example, I'm willing to bet that someone who obviously has, no reason not to fucking care about like price hikes on Uber in like times of need, surge pricing, for example, I'm not even looking at it. I'm clicking go, right? So Uber knows that. So they serve me higher prices no matter what. And not from like Uber Black versus Uber X. I mean, straight up, my Uber X is probably on average more expensive than your Uber X on average, even if we lived in the same fucking neighborhood and even if we used Uber at the same time. There's an algorithm on the back end that literally looks at the likelihood that you will pay more and then serves you higher prices every time. It happens with Uber Eats. It happens with Uber. It happens with all of these applications. And it certainly happens, this concept called dynamic pricing certainly happens with every single application. It is a crazy way in which it's not a flex, chatters. Oh my God. Can we please be adults for like 3 seconds? We're talking about some real nerdy shit that impacts your lives. Holy fuck, dude. I'm literally explaining something that you're probably oblivious to, and you're over here being like, weird flex, dog. It's like, shut up. Just listen, okay? As it stands, a lot of corporations utilize all of the cookies and all of the information that your fucking phone is feeding these applications. As more and more of our shopping turns online, as more and more of our shopping is conducted over our phones, that captures every minute detail of your daily existence, these applications engage in what is known as dynamic pricing. At first, it makes it seem like it's a way to offer cheaper goods, okay? But the reality down the line is that they will figure out exactly when you are more likely to fucking buy shit, and they'll pump you. They will increase your prices. Okay, here it is. David Dayen wrote extensively on this. Yes, this is exactly what I was referencing. One person, one price. Digital surveillance and customer isolation are individualizing the prices we pay. Okay, Uber is also locking drivers out of the app during certain times to increase the demand artificially, thereby increasing the prices. So ridiculous and insane and harmful to the drivers as well as those who work these hours to make their money. It's corporations determining your propensity to consume the goods / product and maximizing how much profit they can extract out of you without turning you away. Yes. Is there something we could do to avoid dynamic pricing? Yes. The administration, if you make a large enough stink about it, will use mechanisms that already are in place from the FTC to put an end to it. Okay. There's also something you can do through the legislative agenda, but I don't think that's likely. I'll be real with you. Yeah, Burger Kings and McDonald's control many prices in a sneaky way, knowing exactly when when every individual's like highest likelihood to pay more money is. They know when you get, they look at your propensity and your likelihood to consume more, like when you get your fucking check. Okay. They know if you're getting paid just off of, here's how the algorithm works, okay? Simply off of how much more likely you are to consume, they know exactly when you're getting payday, okay? And in that situation, right after payday, they will slightly adjust prices. They will slightly adjust prices and increase them in an effort to get you to pay higher prices than you normally would. It's fucking nutty. How crazy is that? It's happening in invisible ways, but obviously because it happens over the course of your day, numerous times a day in every single thing that you're purchasing, it adds up. And it has a tendency to greatly greatly increase the price of consumer goods in general. Okay. What was your solution to the issue with the 25K home buyer policy? Oh, I'll explain. 25K first time home buyer policy is like populist, not the best solution. The best solution is something else that they've also suggested, which is opening up 3 million additional housing units, which is nowhere near enough. But overall, I think that there's a little bit that I agree with the Yimbys on this, where, you know, some of the zoning restrictions are completely unnecessary, especially in high density areas like fucking San Francisco, for example. Okay. High density housing is definitely a necessity in a lot of these places. I don't mind it. I think it's a good thing. Deregulation of housing construction, on the other hand, can mean something very nefarious and very dangerous. When, for example, Trump talks about that, I get a little scared because I don't think he's talking about fucking single family zoning being abolished or whatever. I think he's talking about fucking putting up silly putty houses. Okay, that's one. That's one. Number two, and this is perhaps the most significant. This is perhaps the most significant way to solve the housing crisis, which is public housing, social housing, council housing. If you're British, that's how you call it. Yeah, lad. Council fucking housing, council flats, mate. Council fucking flats, mate. The government needs to step in and create a competitive product that will deflate the actual existing housing prices. Sorry, it's just fucking unacceptable. I know this guy made a snide remark. I said, no more gated mansions. Yeah, you're right, dude. It's me. I'm the problem. You're right. The one guy who owns a house, who regularly advocates to lower the value of this house that I have, I'm your fucking enemy. You're right. There has never been a moment where I have not been an advocate and have not been a fucking full-blown fighter for opening up additional housing units, not in the form of fucking ADUs, by the way. Not like every single homeowner becomes a landlord type shit, but straight up an advocate for socialized housing. It's ridiculous. It's also funny because I'm not an elected representative. So like I have no power over this, but the marginal influence I do have, I use it to advocate for the right things. You'd pay less taxes on your house though? Bitch, are you kidding me? Do you think that is a consideration for me? What the fuck are you talking about? My house price goes up regardless. Okay, whether or not, no matter what I say or do, my housing price goes up. Okay, it just goes up because there is a finite amount of land and people are not using it in the appropriate ways they should be. And there's simply, there's an attitude in the United States of America that like home ownership is an investment vehicle and not necessarily a place that you live in. Okay. It's such a cliche insult at this point. I know. I don't know if people have ever looked at your housing prices, but how the fuck did you get a nice house in LA for only 2.7 mil? That's like the cost of a fucking 3-bedroom apartment. It's actually insane. No, my house was actually, my house was literally, for the rest of the fucking area that I live in, was actually super cheap per square foot, which is an unimaginable thing to say when you think about like how actually normal of a fucking house it is in terms of like a single family house. And also I had great timing. Yeah, well, my great timing was deliberate. I knew that fucking they were going to increase interest rates, so I bought it ahead of that. And I leased a car ahead of that too. This is 1000% going to get weirdly clipped. I know, but it doesn't matter because it's just the fucking truth. People think I live in like a fucking massive $1 gazillion mansion. There's like 20 houses for every homeless person, so it's not a supply issue, it's a distribution issue. There is that problem as well. You're absolutely correct on that because people look at housing as a speculative asset. People look at housing as a vehicle of investment and not something that is shelter and a necessity for people's survival. Kroger is replacing paper tags with electronic ones so they can just have an algorithm changing the price whenever. Imagine if you were Stacy with an olive oil for $15, a good deal, so the label shows up that to her, but 17 to me when I walk by. That's where we're headed. Do not shop at places with e-labels chat. I mean, it's going to be impossible to avoid that, dude, eventually. How the fuck are you leasing a car? That's just a horrible use of money. It's an electric vehicle. There is no reason to fucking purchase an electric vehicle. Everybody always roasts me for leasing a goddamn EV. But so, wait, I thought you bought the Taycan. You tell me all those nice car Andes are mad about a lease? Yes. Okay. The $2.1 billion machine fern video, McDonald's machine fern video goes over exactly this. Yeah. Wait, why only leasing an EV? Have you seen what fucking prices look like for an electric vehicle? It's a new market in general, new technology, new innovative ways, completely fucking write off older models like that. There's also battery lifespan issues in general. I think that is, and it's also super expensive unnecessarily. So now people are mad you didn't pay cash out of pocket. I know. That's why I leased my EV. If you want to replace the EV battery, it's like just buying a new car. Exactly. Chad not knowing the take hands after Hasan's lease, they're his under the ocean right now. Yeah. Leased it and didn't even get the Turbo S, broke ass millionaire. Okay, bro. Well, whatever. I think that it was a good thing to do, even though my brother and all my friends, like my fucking finance friends, some of my best friends in finance, still yell at me about that decision every fucking day. Anyway.
You're at Mc.
I still think it was the right move, but what the fuck do I know? I'm an idiot. Okay. There are various reasons that make leasing a car a good choice in the right circumstance. Okay. Yeah, Harris plans to ban grocery price gouging. What does the evidence say? Price increases when demand exceeds supply or textbook economics. The question is whether and how much the pandemic yielded the excess take. So your brother got a scholarship, right? NASA probably paid handsomely to get him. None of those things happened. His scholarship was called having an older brother who won the fucking lottery by being a Twitch streamer that became successful, who paid off all of his student loan debt. I'm NASA, motherfucker. It's HasanAbi. Yeah, Nepo brother. Okay, let's continue. All right, let's hear what the Republicans have to say about this.
Debuting her economic platform in a few hours. It's got new tax credits, costly support for first-time home buyers, and a federal ban on, quote, price gouging. Harris specifically calls out grocery stores taking advantage of Americans. But look at this. Retailers reporting profit margins at 1.6%.
Dude, this is fucking insane, okay? This is actually insane. Bro, like, here, let's look at this. With respect to like all the other price of consumer goods and their profit margins, okay? The economic genius is Brian Kilmeade. Yeah. Sometimes you hear, but grocery is a low margin business. And I think the correct thing to say is it was a low margin business until the pandemic. One thing that has been notable about grocery prices during the pandemic is that their earnings behavior has been empirically different from the rest of retail. Whereas margins in other retail popped fast, then came back down, grocery margins rose slowly and have stayed stubbornly high. Factors like avian flu and substitution towards high margin store brand products may have had some effect during this time, but this is a larger, more persistent shift than I would have expected from just those temporary peripheral factors. Just steal groceries, simple. People do that. And that's why shrinkage has increased while profit margins have stayed up. Why? Because the pesky, incredibly costly part of the grocery business is obviously hiring people. How does shrink increase? Well, you no longer have cashiers operating cash registers, and you have self-checkout. With self-checkout comes more opportunities to steal, and many people do it. But that's still baked into their profit margins, because even though shrink goes up, you now no longer have to pay people's health insurance. You now no longer have to pay people's salary. You now no longer have to pay people in general, okay? This is a mathematical equation that they've engaged in, and they know that. And that's why I laugh whenever people say organized retail theft is responsible for $1 billion or billions of dollars in fucking theft every year. You're a fucking dumbass if you believe that. You literally are contributing to the shrink more than fucking organized retail theft. They're not stealing fucking enriched uranium, okay? They're stealing fucking groceries and things that are like $8, okay? You fucking dummies. Do you know how much organized retail theft has to happen for that to actually make a dent in shrink? That's insane. They're fucking people. You're stealing it. Like, you're contributing to the shrink more than organized retail theft is when you go to the fucking grocery store and you sneak into your bag a fucking Reese's cup, okay? That's literally happening way more frequently and across the board. That actually contributes to the shrink. And it doesn't matter because that still actually is not reflected in their profit margins, because it's still cheaper for them to hire less people and just eat the fucking cost of people stealing shit overall. 5% being the lowest. I wonder we can't feed people. Maybe AI will fix this. Yeah. Look at this shit, dude. Retail trade margins by subsector. Fucking boom. All other retail explodes. Okay. Dips back, normalizes a little bit, but it's still rising steadily. Whereas food and beverage retail, big bump. Okay. Another massive big bump, dip, another massive fucking bump, and just continues. People weighing their own hot bar, salad, food bar, self-checkout is massive at Whole Foods. Yeah. These people don't think these grocery stores have cameras. They just act like they don't care because petty theft doesn't make a dent. If it made a difference, they'd prosecute en masse. Exactly. Shrink isn't even just theft. It accounts for products that spoil and other stuff too. Exactly. Shrink has increased alongside more consumer goods being purchased. When foot traffic increases, shrink increases. It adjusts to more foot traffic. It adjusts to more consumer goods being purchased. That's all this is. There's breakage in the logistical, in the supply chain. That's a big part of shrink as well. There's also theft of employees stealing shit as well. That's also in shrink. Anyway, wait, you guys don't have security guards and helpers at checkout stations? Bro, they don't have enough. Like, what do you mean? That's the whole principle behind having one guy command like 8 fucking self-checkout stations, and he's not really there all the time anyway. But yeah, also people get paid too little to carry. Imagine fucking, what are you gonna do? You're gonna fucking go Punisher mode on like a teenager for fucking shoplifting a Skittles? Like, what is wrong with you? Nobody gives a fuck, you know? No one's paid enough to care. Anyway, so that's always ironic when people talk about that shit.
Really? Is that gouging? Former Trump chairman of the Council on Economic Advisors twice, Kevin Hassett, joins us. Kevin, from what you see and for what's been framed out for us this morning, what will this do?
Like, for an economist, this is about the most terrifying proposal I've ever seen, because what Kamala Harris is saying is that the government needs to set the price of things. And she's starting with food, but I guess if they're going to set the price of food, they might as well set the price of everything else. They've also...
Wait, first of all, we do set the price of food, okay? Make no mistake. Whenever someone who is an economist claims that the government doesn't set the price of food, they're lying, okay? Of course we set the price of food. Here's how we set the price of food currently. We set the price of food with farm subsidies and agricultural subsidies. That's number one. We also set the price of food by offering welfare and economic help to those who work at places like fucking Walmart, okay? These are retailers that get billions of dollars of federal help to adjust their prices, adjust their wages as low as physically, humanly possible without like literally killing their fucking employees. They do that, okay? They do that on a daily fucking basis. This is simply asking for a return on that, okay? If you're making an investment, it's perfectly valid for you to ask a return on that investment, okay? It's ridiculous. I think the government should play fast and loose a little bit more. I think the government should play hardball a little bit more, okay? That's all I want. Hey, HasanAbi, just want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to earn money. I'm a 27-year-old living with cerebral palsy at home and unable to work. My dad passed away from brain cancer 12 years ago. And since then, my mother and I have been moving from one family member to the next. So thank you again. Hell yeah, chatter. I don't know. I assume you make like... You make money off of HasanAbi clips, right? I suspect there's a clip channel in the HasanAbi Clips industrial complex. Republicans fucking complained about prices as a political talking point over and over again, especially because it was a real problem that a lot of people are experiencing. Kamala Harris acknowledged the problem, said she's going to solve it, and now they're complaining. Now they're complaining that they're solving the fucking problem. It's like, what do you want? What the fuck do you want?
About, you might recall the Biden administration saying that they want to set rents, that they think rents are too high, so they're going to have the government decide what the rent for.
My God, I would nut if they did that. That'd be so fucking sick. Jesus Christ, they should literally do that. Holy fuck.
This is absolute socialism, and it never ends well. If you go back and look at the countries that have tried this, like...
They want not a black person to do it? Nah, it's not that. They want Trump to win for that reason as well as other reasons, but like it's also because like these guys, you have to remember there's a higher order than even white supremacy here, okay? White supremacy is a very powerful motivator, but the highest order is still capitalism, okay? Saul, that's it. They'll say Vuvuzela is coming. They're going to say the V word. Trust me, it's coming. They're going to say the M word, Maduro, and they're going to say Vuvuzela. It's coming.
Cuba, Venezuela, Ukraine, back when the Soviet Union organized it, then it leads to famine and shortages. And I was just in Lisbon, Portugal, where they still have really aggressive rent control, and all of the apartments are empty because the people who own the buildings can't afford to rent them to people because...
Dude, talking about former Soviet Republic nations and housing in such places is such a funny fucking thing to bring up, because they literally have like 80-90% homeowner rates. Okay, it's actually insane to bring that up. Quite literally the exact opposite of the reality that he is mentioning. Okay,
the rent is so low. And so this is an absolute disaster. Right. This is socialism at its highest. And the really chilling thing is that, think about it, it's right before the Democratic
I don't know about the Portugal part. I don't know. He just snuck that in there.
National Convention. She's the nominee. She should be trying to moderate her...
All former socialist and socialist countries have high home ownership rate above 90%. Cuba, China, Vietnam, Laos, Poland, Russia, former Soviet republics, Albania, Romania, Bulgaria, Hungary, and all countries of ex-Yugoslavia. Home ownership in the DPRK is 99.8%, according to some sources. I mean, I don't know about DPRK, but like, because I just don't know if there's reliable data from DPRK. But ultimately, you're right. A lot of these former Soviet nations have incredibly high home ownership rates in comparison to the United States of America. The United States of America is still relying on the GI Bill and other additional social safety nets that made home ownership a reality for many Americans. That is the reason why there's still a relatively higher home ownership rate in the United States of America than you would think. I believe it's around 60% or so, because you would probably assume if you're younger, if you're under the age of like 45, home ownership rate is nothing. Okay, so you think that's laughable. You're like, what? Home ownership rate for who? But in the United States of America, it's still around 65%, something around that. And that is because homes used to be affordable, and also there was a lot of help for home ownership in general. But of course, with every other aspect of the American economy, many people took advantage of the loopholes, or rather the help that people got. 99% of home ownership of shitholes. What? That's not true though. What's the quality of those homes? Okay, that is some freak behavior. Okay, the idea that you're like, oh, it must be a shithole is just American exceptionalism and copium at the highest degree. And I know for a fucking fact that this dingus does not own a home. So why the fuck are you chirping, dumbass? Okay? You will never be able to buy a home. So why the fuck are you literally advocating against your best interest here? Okay? What a stupid fucking argument. I am not American and I own a home in France. Oh my God, dude. Homes in ex-socialist countries are shit. Not recognizing that a lot of the home ownership price adjustments come from actual working class fighting to ensure that the prices are normal. Okay, still benefiting from that in a place like France, and then chirping about America is hilarious. Okay, see yourself out of this fucking conversation, dumbass. I've already brought up the example in the United States of America. Okay, for example, the United States of America having 65% home ownership, French home price normal. I don't know if I can have this conversation with you, man. I don't know. I don't know how you will understand the words that are coming out of my mouth. Maybe because English is not your first language. You're just having a hard time comprehending the things that I'm saying. Okay. Let me explain something to you. Okay. Every reason as to how you were able to purchase a home, barring like some, other reason because you were like the son or daughter of a very wealthy person, is a direct consequence of some sort of market regulation, socialization, okay? Initiatives that were in place many, many years prior to you ever purchasing a home. Any reason as to why you're now complaining about home ownership being unaffordable is a direct consequence of the for-profit attitudes that are in the sector of home ownership. In the United States of America, the argument that I was trying to present, the fact that there is still a 65% home ownership rate is a direct consequence of prior socialization initiatives. Okay? It's additionally funny to say this when your own fucking government tries to actively readjust pricing by pouring billions into fucking public housing. 1/4 of residents in the French capital live in government-owned housing, part of an aggressive plan to keep lower-income Parisians and their businesses in the city. There is no place on the planet that There are very few places on the planet outside of the United States of America where there's like high density population centers where housing prices have skyrocketed in a similar capacity. Canada is one example of this, of course. All of those places have completely unshackled and unrestricted home ownership and have caused housing prices to skyrocket and make it incredibly unaffordable. Okay? The way to combat that still absolutely stems from good public policies like public housing. I'm not a son, but very lucky and privileged. Most people my age can't afford a home I bought. And I 100% agree with you about home prices going up because of greed and speculation. That being said, most people own a house in ex-USSR countries, own in majority houses made in the 50s, which are crumbling. Brother, you do understand that ultimately being able to own a house is still better than being homeless, right? I think we agree. Being able to own a house is still better than fucking being a permanent renter. And the only way to arrive at that is with these kinds of initiatives. So why the fuck are you chirping and coping and being like, oh, well, their houses suck shit though? Also, it is additionally ironic that you're talking about how those homes were built in the fucking 50s or whatever. What do you think has happened in the United States of America, especially in a place like Los Angeles, California, where there isn't a lot of weather conditions that ruin the available housing inventory? So most of our houses are also built in the fucking 50s. Anyway,